Good evening.
And welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Metropolitan Council today. It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. I'm Reva Chambliss, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting in Chair Zell's absence. Our first item to approve today is the agenda. If there are no additions or corrections, I'll consider that agenda approved. Our next order of business is approval of the December 11th Metropolitan Council minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. At this time, I will ask if there is an invitation to come up, and if there's anyone that wants to speak for public comments. Do we have anyone signed up? Nope. We don't have anyone signed up, so we will continue to our consent business where we have 6 items. Is there a motion to approve the consent business items 1 through 6?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. That motion carries. We have non-consent business today, and there are no consent business items. We do have reports of the standing committees for community development.
There are no reports.
No reports.
No reports. Environment? No reports. Management? No reports. Transportation?
No reports.
Reports. And no joint reports. We do have a business item 2025-17, which is appointments to the Transportation Advisory Committee tab. Chair Barber, do you have any comments about the tab appointments?
No, I guess we can just say that we did, Executive Director Charles Carlson and I interviewed the candidates. A number of them are returning veterans, which is very nice to see. We do have a couple of additional still open vacancies for alternates, so for District E and for District H. But we were also able to fill an additional alternate vacancy for District B. So all of them come with a lot of experience, and very happy to move the item.
Well, thank you for making the motion to move those tab appointments. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Any discussion? Deb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say I really want to thank all the people who apply to do this work, especially our citizen reps. You know, they come in with a variety of different experiences and lived backgrounds, and very, very appreciative, because the tab seats do take a lot of time. And so it's very, very thankful that they were willing to put their names forward.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate the TAB Advisory Board and the commitment that they have and the returning expertise that we're going to continue to have. So at this time, we are ready to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. That motion carries. Thank you. We do have one information item on the agenda today, and it's a presentation on community relations activity, a summary and a look ahead.
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair and Council members. Thank you for having the Community Relations team here with you this afternoon. We didn't realize that we would get this sort of like really star-studded, prestigious line item here on the agenda, but really it's an opportunity for us to share with you some of the good work that has been done this last year, and like we said, the 2025 look ahead. So for starters, I am Sam O'Connell. I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Community Relations since December of 2021. Can't believe that it's gone that long, but I am here with you. I also have some of our team members with us on Community Relations. So we have Michael Sun, who's our Community Relations Consultant, and Elias Montez, Tessa as our community relations specialist. In the audience today, I would also like to acknowledge Nathan Hansen, who just started on Monday at the council. So Nathan comes from us from Dakota County. So Nathan comes from Dakota County to us, and he has an interesting role, kind of a first of its kind here at the council. For half of his responsibilities, we'll be working with Director Shetman and Hannah Pallmeyer on government issues during the legislative session. He will be afforded some sleep after that happens, and then he will, Red Rover, come on over to community relations, where he will be spending some time too. So just wanted to welcome Nathan to the team, and so you get to meet him as well. So today, we're going to spend a little bit of time just sharing some good information, some good data, highlights of your work, like we said, in community relations, and we're also going to talk about what to expect in 2025 as well. So I am going to make sure, okay, that worked fantastic. We'll kind of start at the end of 2023, and the real mile marker there is that we were able to bring in a new, wicked smart team that's highly talented, that comes with a lot of skill set. So that basically happened in Q4 of 2023. So that is where we got to see not only Elias and Michael join us, but Allison Waka, as well as our tribal liaison and Native Communities Relations Coordinator. As you know, it's the full-time position. It's the first time we ever had that position. So as I like to say, I think some of you have heard me say this before, we're small, but we're mighty. And really looking forward to the work that our team is doing. I also just want to take this time to publicly thank Cherzelli and at that time Acting Regional Administrator Phil Walljasper for giving us the opportunity to sort of reimagine and rethink the role of community relations and how it best can serve you all as well as the council. So you don't get that opportunity very often, and I just want to acknowledge that here, that I think allowed us to really spread our wings and really think about this more strategically in terms of what community relations means to the council. Although our team is new to the council and kind of new to each other, they gelled pretty quickly, putting the structure into place to support the community relations work. First and foremost was working with you and developing some action plans. That's, I think, some key words that you'll be hearing. And really the gist of the action plan is how do we get you better connected to the communities you serve, really bring back the information that you hear from those communities, kind of work internally as well, and how can we support you for sustainable engagement with your stakeholders. I appreciate your support in this effort because we know your time is finite. That is something that we do have to work with all of our council members, and this just allows us to ensure that we have you in places where you need to be, where your voice is heard, and where you're hearing that back and bringing that back to the community. 2024 also saw the reestablishment of the annual State of the Region, which not only provides an opportunity for local leaders to engage with you and staff leadership, but sets the framework for some of our conversations with townships, cities, and counties. I would also say that we're looking forward to the next State of the Region here in a couple of weeks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. Another exciting highlight for 2024 is that our team also is working internally in establishing relationships, and one of the key pieces of that was establishing internal training. When you have 4,500 people working at the council, it always seems to amaze us not everybody knows the work of the council, and particularly the work of the folks sitting around here. So we really strive to share that information, talk about how you all have come into your positions, the ideas and thoughts and desires with your roles, and what kind of really drives you as passionate leaders. I would like to say that Allison also did that with some of the tribal training as well. And some of the highlights is having folks show up on a virtual meeting on a Friday afternoon, and it's 200 staff members learning and engaging. So we've done that. We will like to continue to do that in 2025. We're also building a little bit more structure, and I hope this one gets an applause a little bit more with your HR and IS needs. We understand that they're there. We're not completely, but we're beginning to build a little bit more of the structures to just make sure that you're able to do the work that you need to do and that it's supported with us as well. I would also just want to take a minute here to recognize the work of Mindy Shipman and Ginger Free and Mi Chang as well, because without their incredible talents, it really did free up our team to begin to think a little bit more strategically in how we support you. So I just also want to acknowledge that work as well. I think on a personal note for 2024, being in community, particularly the Committee of the Whole on September 4th, when we were at the Minneapolis American Indian Center, really brought to fruition the whole idea of what it means to be in community, to have great conversations, and to be working together. I would like to say that we're working with Regional Administrator O'Connor, the Chair Zelli, and others to think about how we continue to take Committee of the Whole on the road and really be in the places, in the communities, and working with the folks that we all serve. On a personal note, we had a staff retreat. So yes, even 4 people can get together and come up with some big, great ideas. We're still learning a little bit of what our individual talents and how to maximize that, and really in a way to serve you all as well. That's ultimately what we're hoping to do in some of our conversations today, and in the future we'll talk to that. I'm going to move us to 2025. So particularly coming out of our staff retreat was to really focus on how we do that and expand our functions with our teams and really maximize that the skill sets that we bring in a ways to line up with your desires and your passions. Part of that too that we're still working on is how do we bring what you're hearing out in community back to the council, and how do we work on that and create that value added layer as well. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the state of the region just because it's coming up before you know it. I know when we first initially started planning, it's like, that's months away. We don't have to be thinking about it, and here we are in January. So just this week, some notices have been going out to your stakeholders about the state of the region. It is on Thursday, January 30th at Allianz Field from 1:30 to 3:30. I think it's a nice balance since the 2024 state of the region where we were out in Hopkins, and now we're a little bit more closer into the urban core. This is an opportunity not to just be face again, but an opportunity to highlight all the good work that the council has been doing. And sometimes that good work goes unnoticed, so it gives us an opportunity to share that as well. I also say it's an opportunity for us to say to our stakeholders, this is what we're hearing from you. This is what you're telling us, and we're working on it as well. Sometimes that is an opportunity that we don't always get. It's also a time to bring in local thought leaders on issues that are critical that we're all facing, whether we're at a township, a city, or a county, for all of us to get around these big kind of crazy, hairy ideas sometimes and really start deepening our relationships. So with that, you've heard enough from me. I'm going to hand this over to Michael.
Thanks, Sam. I'm going to move this. Chair, council members, for the public, I'm Michael Sund. I'm the Community Relations Consultant, and I'm going to take a moment to talk about our policy process. Now, we have a fairly our policy process is difficult to describe in a single model, right, is a way of putting it. So what I have here is not a step-by-step process necessarily. It's certain landmarks you see in different policy processes as they go. And what I wanted to talk about was how we in community relations try to facilitate the council process of using community connections through that process to come out with, the policies that you eventually vote on. So in the first step there, what you're seeing is how we kind of support local government meetings. We're working to facilitate opportunities for you to meet with your jurisdictional partners. So that can be a meeting with a mayor and a city manager. It can be a meeting with a community leader, somebody like that, to talk about an issue. We tend to be the ones who attend to take notes and follow up, but to distribute that information throughout the organization, right? To tie those meetings back into how things are being designed. The next step generally is a deliberation in small groups. So you also see us there. Those are things where it's like a work group as you're functionally working through how your policy is being developed, or it might be a public group of residents who have put forward their time to attend something to help you with your policy process. we tend to go to those to, again, try to facilitate information across council members. So not all council members participate in all groups. And so it's important for everyone to understand what they need to know, so when it comes to making a decision, you have all the information. In that third step, we try to kind of facilitate the research from staff. One of the great things about the Met Council is we truly have some of, the best experts you can get in the region for a lot of topics. And so facilitating meetings with council members and staff to have a discussion where you get that expert input on, what about this idea? Have people thought about this? How do other models work around the region? And we are also there to try to help those out. As policy is sort of refined, we tend to try to share as much information as we can, and that's where those weekly emails, little things like that come from, is trying to say to all the other council members, okay, this is where we're at, so everybody knows what to expect as we move forward. Next, and I'll go to the next slide there we go. Next, you'll see the drafts. So these are things that are like, you'll hear 90% draft or some percentage, and then it'll go to public comment is typically what'll happen. And during that public comment phase, that can be one of the places where it's very easy for the public to miss their opportunity to participate in the process. And so we're trying to work with your partners to say, hey, as much as you can, spread this message, network now, it's a new policy we're considering. We want to hear from you because it's very important to understand what you think. And so that's, again, where community relations is trying to work with you to understand who are the people in the region who will need to know about this and will want to comment on this policy. The sixth step there, the next stage, is the committee process, but I would say the committee process is really peppered throughout the entire policy process. You'll see committees intervene at different places as staff are bringing forward items. But it is in the process right before something goes from being a policy that is fully proposed to going to the full council, that you'll see committee chair leadership really become very important, right? It's often we're having those final discussions, deliberating on the final items, and then getting something moved to the full council for deliberation. And then, of course, after that, if a policy is implemented, there's then that follow-up step. If I could, I would wrap this whole graphic around. It didn't fit on PowerPoint, so we can't do that. But policy processes are cyclical, right? They're iterative. And we often are talking about the same things over and over again, and we're coming back to it. And that's where we tend to just monitor. So if a constituent or a person is reaching out to you saying, hey, this new thing is affecting my life positively or negatively, that might be another point where we need to start discussing a future policy process. And so that's why community relations is often working on the ground, trying to just hear and understand from you what people in your communities are saying. With that, I will pass it off to Elias to talk about engagement.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, Madam Chair, council members. Great to be here. I am very pleased to deliver some highlights from your 2024. So first up on here, we had some major accomplishments that came through council and committee of the whole meetings, receiving recommendations from the American Indian Advisory Council, approving the 90% draft of the Regional Development Guide, and more progress on transit safety and security. Of course, we know the work's never done, but these are some great milestones that we've achieved here. During 76 standing committee meetings in 2024, you've also moved the needle on a lot of important initiatives. A couple highlights I'll go over are the Livable Communities Act program review and the Network Now Transit Service Development Plan, which is very exciting for our communities and all you folks listening online. Council members also participated in 43 advisory committee meetings like the Transportation Advisory Board, the Equity Advisory Committee, the Land Use Advisory Committee, and many others. You made important progress on modernizing EAC bylaws and provided invaluable policy guidance for the Regional Development Guide, among many other things. And finally, from your 2024, I'll highlight the 54 meetings you've collectively held with jurisdictional partners on major infrastructure projects. This includes the Blue Line Extension municipal consent process, planning for the completion of the Green Line Extension and the Gold Line, and project development meetings like the Purple Line and the Highway 55 BRT Policy Advisory Committee. Next, let's review your efforts to connect and reconnect with local governments and community partners across the region. By our count, you've collectively visited almost 100 cities and townships across our region. We also did a tour of the counties. While we haven't yet made it to all 7 metro area counties, we know that the 5 visits thus far have been very valuable to establish and reinforce regular connection with our county partners. We also saw a corresponding increase in your meetings with individual county commissioners stemming out of that. We also held more than 500 meetings with members of the public and 200 plus meetings with nonprofits, advocacy groups, and regional associations. Those are some really impressive numbers, and we're very pleased to have worked with you to achieve them. We are looking forward to supporting you as you continue to level up your engagement in 2025. So now the question is, what does our vision for engagement look like, and how do we track it? In short, the big things that we always emphasize are transparency, honesty, and meeting people where they are at. We submit an engagement report to communications, shout out to them, that they include with their weekly organization-wide report to the governor's office on all Met Council engagement activities. The report that we send is based on what's on your calendar for the week. We know that sometimes calendars do not capture everything, but they give us a pretty good sense of what's going on. With that in mind, keep calendars updated. I know lots of you are very good at that, and communicate with us. It really helps with filling out that report and getting us some of those brownie points. We heard some key themes coming out of your engagement that have shaped and will continue to shape the council's work. So transit is a really big one, specifically safety and security, and project planning and construction. We've been really responsive and made a lot of progress, but of course we know our work is never done. Another thing we hear about is opportunities for the council to support business and economic development through its policies and programs. The built environment and the infrastructure and policies that support it are key determinants of economic opportunity. We play a key role in this area. We also hear a lot about equity. The council is both a leader and a coordinator of policy responses to inequity and planning in planning and transportation across the region. Sometimes these are tough conversations, as we all know. But we know that they lead us to a better place of understanding and support our action to address historical harms within our organization's spheres of jurisdiction. With that, I'll pass it back off to Michael.
Yeah, so we didn't plan this, but this nice little 3 and 3 back is working really well. But yeah, I'm just going to talk quickly about a few more of these about water. So water is a key topic that many of you bring up. I think it means different things in different districts, right? But it is a key thing that we are all encountering. So I think we heard about it at the American Indian Center. We also hear about it out in Forest Lake. You know, we hear about it everywhere, right? So it's going to be an important topic. It was an important topic last year. It's going to be a very important topic this year, and it will continue to be. So I think watch that space. You'll just continue to hear more about water and water issues in the Twin Cities and how the Met Council is really doing some of the most amazing work on it. And with other partners, we're really moving the needle on some key metrics. You also see in there supporting the Met Council's mission. So you may not know this, but Imagine 2050 is the regional development guide is going to be adopted this year. I'm of course kidding, but it'll be a document that once adopted, you'll start to see in nearly everything the Met Council does. Right? This is one of the most key documents that is built by the council, and after that, it influences how all of our work is done. And so you'll continue to see that, and it'll support that mission as we go. And we also want to include in here kind of the variable one, which is tell us more, right? What are you hearing in your communities? Telling us is really helpful because then we can pass it back to all of our staff partners. We know you already work with a lot of staff on a lot of different issues, but I think it's important to continually try to keep our ear to the ground and try to hear more about the issues that you're encountering in your districts. For 2025, some exciting highlights. I'll just go over them. You'll see at the top some that you would expect. So that's the State of the Region coming up that Sam already mentioned, the Regional Development Guide that I was just talking about, meetings with our jurisdictional partners, townships, cities, all of those folks. But you'll also see some new things that we've heard from you and we're trying to implement. So, in there you'll see council member onboarding. We're going to try to work a little bit more on that. Norms, policies, and procedures, working around the edges to try to improve your process and kind of have that continuous improvement attitude about it. Also for meetings with meeting and speaking engagements, trying to rethink, okay, who can we get Met Council members in front of with our partner organizations where they would be very interested but may not know as much detail about our organization? Who can we go talk to? And then you'll also see action plans, that word that Sam was talking about. Action plan is our word for an annual plan that really is so action-based. The idea is that you're doing a lot of things, and so we want to coordinate that across council members as much as possible so that you as a whole council are really achieving your strategic goals. And so that's where those action plans are coming from. The district investment sheets are very exciting. This was a cross-collaborative effort led by intergovernmental relations folks who brought together data from across the council and broke it down by your districts. And they're coming together as these PDF sheets to begin with, and eventually we hope to build it back into a digital tool that could be used by our partners to quickly look up facts in your district. So if you went to District 1, you could see, okay, what has the Met Council done for housing in District 1, and you could quickly pull that data together. That will be longer down the road. We hope to do that. For right now, they're going to be investment sheets that will show kind of how Met Council is investing in the district, and it'll be for each topic, you'll have one of those. So those are coming soon. And finally, I wanted to talk about tribal relations. If you thought there was a lot going on last year, I think you should anticipate to hear about it even more in the next year. I think we have a lot of very exciting work ahead of us that was previewed a little bit at that committee of the whole session. But I think you'll continue to see, especially as we go into updating the tribal policy, a lot more work going into what does that mean for the Met Council. We have a lot of analogs that we've looked at from around the country, but I think building out that policy more is going to be a really interesting process. And then I'll pass it back to Sam to finish up.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Just moving on to the last slide that we have to share with you tonight is really as we kick off our strategic planning for 2025 and building your action plans. Our purpose in these conversations is really to document your dreams and desires, quite frankly, is what it is. I think all of you had this wonderful passion on why you chose to serve on the council, and we want to be a part of your team and bring that to fruition for you and continue to expand on it. So we're looking forward to these conversations. And as Michael said, it's great for your individual and then also us as a collective for the council as well. To aid our discussions, we've listed a few questions just to kind of have you think about it. You don't have to answer them now, but this is where we're going to be traveling together. We're looking to get to that destination together for us. It's like, what is your vision for engagement? What does that mean to the council, you individual, to your communities, to your organizations, your stakeholders? What do you hope to accomplish? It could be short-term. We could break that down quarterly. We could break it down into a longer vision, whatever it is. But I think being able to help us document that will help us. We see you all not only as local leaders, but your regional leaders, your national leaders. How can we also support some of that as well? And then just really, we see ourselves as being an extension of you in so many wonderful ways, and we're just very much open to see how we can best serve you. So with that, Madam Chair, that ends our formal presentation, but our team is happy to stand for any questions or comments the council may have.
Well, thank you, Sam, Michael, and Elias. Very good information, a very good guidebook as we plan to receive your support in 2025. From council members, do you have comments? Council Member Vento.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you for the presentation as well. I do have one personal question for Elias. How do you feel about Canada being a 51st?
The U.S. Wants that because they've never had to deal with Quebec. That's the only comment I'll have.
Response. Yeah, good answer. I think that I'm going to go right to the goals and hope to accomplish. I don't know how long my term is going to be. The position hasn't been posted yet, and my commitment is to serve in the position until it's filled. But since being on, my goal had been to make as many visits per month as I could. The challenge that I think many of us face is that our committees and our council tend to meet on the nights when our communities and townships are meeting. for those of us who represent particularly the outer ring where they aren't having daytime meetings. So it's a challenge being able to set up those evening meetings. The good advantage I have now that my new district includes part of Dakota County is being able to meet with the townships and the small communities at regularly scheduled meetings that they have. So for those of us in the outer counties, it is especially a challenge, and particularly in my case where you've got 23 entities. We're doing the best we can. And when I'm not available to actually meet with them, at least to have the conversations on the phone, as frequently as possible. The part that the one thought I would ask is that we try to get some of our leadership out into those communities and townships and counties as well. I think we tend to have a greater visibility within the two major counties than we do with the outer counties. And I think the more that we can get leadership out there, the better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good comments and feedback. Other comments? Councilmember Carter.
And I've said this before, and you guys generally do a pretty good job of this. I just want to know that whenever there's a contact made in my district, that I know about it, that no one's coming back to me and saying, where were you, or anything like that, because I want to be there. I want to show that I'm in partnership and representing them as the best I can.
I would second that.
I'll third it.
Been an issue for me.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. I know that we do a really good job when it comes time for public comment in an issue area or before a policy is adopted. And I really appreciate the work that staff does to make sure there is a very visible process and that people know how to register their comments. I also know that we receive communication periodically or every now and then on a number of issues, and that sometimes it is very much, this is what I want, this is what I see, this is what I think, and people just wanting to get that somewhere so that it's held and so that it can be a part of future planning. Of course, council members are forwarding that information as we get it. I wonder if there is something that I'm ignoring that I might help guide people to or direct people to or know about in terms of where that kind of information goes. It may be on any amount of issues, but it would always be in a bucket of a sort around the issues that our council is engaged with. So I'm wondering if there is something that happens to that kind of comment that does not come within a public comment period, and what I might share with people as to how that information is handled.
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilmember Carter, I think that's exactly what our team is really striving to do, is that outside of those official public comment periods, you are getting a lot of inquiries from your stakeholders, and it's really our job, kind of based on the internal relationships that we have. I like to tell a joke is that if you get anything about Metro Transit, the very first person you send it to is Pam Steffens, right? Pam is going to be the person that can help bring that in and triage what that issue is. And then we're also building that a little bit more for other areas of the organization as well as we spend more time with our colleagues to do that. It is our hope and our desire to make sure that if that gets sent to us, that you have peace of mind to know that it will go to the right and correct person within the organization, and that the person who sent it to you also gets a response.
Could I just do a quick
Councilmember
follow-up on
Johnson?
that point? Thank you for that question. And I think what might be helpful for me, and you guys are doing a great job, I know Michael is just trying to keep track of me every day, and that's a tough job. But when I get something and I forward it into staff, I will always copy Michael, or if I don't know where to forward it, Michael will be my first point of contact. And I think that it's just really important, and I don't know if there's a system on your end, but this looping back, and I like replies to all. I like to stay on the string as long as I need to and get out of it when I don't. But I will say there are things that I'm just not kept in the string, and I don't know how it was resolved. And so maybe I would assume that hearing nothing is a resolution, but not, I've done this too long. Sometimes that's just, we're busy people. It might have gone to somebody where like, I had part of the answer, but not all of the answer. That is something that I think for my 6 years here has been inconsistent for me. And I think to Dr. Carter's point or everybody's point, just making sure that we have something to respond back or we know how that they're going to get the resolution or stay informed the whole way. Because I'm learning along the way too. Somebody might have a question. I'm like, oh, that's a good question. And I'd like to be included in what that answer is. So if that could be a best practice, I know I would appreciate it. And I think maybe it goes to what you were raising, Councilmember Carter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Councilmember Littleton?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. And just I want to say thanks to Sam and your whole team. I just think you're doing an amazing job, and it's really interesting to watch how your sort of time spent reimagining your function and how that is looking like as it's implemented. And you can tell. I mean, just in my short time, my 6 years here now, it feels so different, and I commend you for that. And so great work. And just a couple things, and I had looked at these questions beforehand, so I thought you wanted answers tonight, but I'll save some of them and we can take them offline. But a couple things that you touched on, and one is the speaking engagement part. And I think that that's really intriguing, and I feel like a little bit of FaceTime from Met Council members in our communities, a little bit more, could really go a long way, and that's building, those relationships, that trust. I think kind of going some distance to broader feelings about the Met Council, maybe some not so positive feelings, and how we can, we're in a relationship business, right? I mean, we're policymakers, but it's really about relationships. So I look forward to seeing what that looks like in 2025 and beyond. Another piece that is the way we engage those most impacted in our decision making. And I know that this has been discussed here before, and that this would take statutory action to accomplish, but to really show the value that we give to those people who are willing to give their time and their expertise to our work through compensation. Right, and it just makes such a difference in the quality of engagement that we see, but also in who can be engaged. Right, you have to have a certain level of free time or income or ability to be engaged when you're uncompensated. So I just want to make sure we're not losing that, and I know there's been discussion about how to accomplish that. And then the last comment I'll make tonight, and I know we'll have more opportunities to weigh in, but is now I can't read my own writing, district investment sheets, right? Okay, and I think that's a great idea, and I can see this path to creating maybe even an interactive kind of online tool, right? Touch your district, touch your street or something, and you can see things. And in my meetings with my communities, those tend to be at sort of an association or a neighborhood kind of level within Minneapolis, but it amazes me how little people know about the Met Council, and I think generally, broadly speaking, a lot of people don't know a ton about local government anyway, and that really touches them. But in a recent neighborhood meeting, I think I shared this before, where there's communities that are being touched by construction on Lake Street, light rail construction, Hennepin Avenue changes all at the same time. And their concern, as they voiced it to me, was nobody had any data about it. They couldn't find any data. And I'm like, oh, geez, Met Council is a data generating entity, and there's a ton of it, right? But I just don't know that it's organized in a way that even very smart people and engaged people can access it easily. And so as we look to 2025 and beyond, that I think it would just be really helpful if we're thinking, planning, integrating this idea of creating a whole way for the communities we represent to access our data in an easy way, an easy and interactive way. Thanks.
Madam Chair, may I respond? Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren. I think we're really excited about the district investment sheets is really starting that sort of first level of conversation and share. I think we're all passionate about telling our story because not everybody sees our story, especially if it's like wastewater or something. I mean, that's the invisible conversations, the narratives that we want. And I just, also, the data, I really appreciate the comment that we are a data-rich organization, and I will just preview with you all. Hopefully, I'm not going to make anybody mad on the comms team, but one of the sessions that we will be talking about at the State of the Region is like, we have data. This is going to help some of you inform some of the decision-making at the local level. But we have to reinvent and reintroduce ourselves every single year because we have new mayors. We have new council members. We have new county commissioners and township leaders. So this is an opportunity to share that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren. I know I was happy to hear about the district investment sheets as well. And I know that will tie in really good with our community profiles. So I'm sure you'll be working with the research team on collaboration in that area.
Can I just, Madam Chair, just as clear, the goal is to make it interactive as well. We had to start not interactive based on a software upgrade going on, but the technology group is involved. So I just, because that one's an easy answer, I wanted to just interject it now and say that is in the plans, and we wanted to not wait for perfect to get in the way of the good to be able to help tell that story.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I just had a
Councilmember
follow-up
Johnson.
question. So Robert, those were great comments. And then Sam, it is true the elections take people in and out, but the staff people are really the ones that are primarily going to access the data, and they stick longer, hopefully, if your city's doing a good job. We don't, run them out. But I don't know how much we ever go to different areas of the region and ask, well, what kind of data do you want? Because we're generating a lot, but what kinds of things are important to you based on what you've got going on in your own communities? And I don't, maybe we've done that, but I don't know if everybody is going to be wanting the same thing. And so tailoring it maybe to, make it easier for people to get what they're going to want in that top line, maybe the top, half of the things that they're always going to be accessing. If we can figure that out, is all I'm saying.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, it is so timely that you asked that and made that statement because, again, as we talked about the State of the Region having a breakout session on data, that's one of the questions. Here's what we offer. Here's what do you need? Do you need it at a different level? Do you need it, coming at a higher frequency or less? And I think that's exactly what the council members can help facilitate in those questions. You all are in spaces where folks are saying, if only we had, and that's when our ears should perk up and then begin to think about how we can provide that.
Just a quick follow-up on that, and that is important, but it's got to permeate through the director level within departments too, that are going to be the ones on the day-to-day, and they may or may not be coming to the State of the Region, and the city manager or mayor who might be at that might not even know even into their own workings of the stuff that we have one-on-one relationships, I think, with projects and things like that. So, however we can permeate, or maybe through Metro Cities and the MLC and all that too, to get it, or the City Manager Association, that would be really good. And I do appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Those are good ideas.
Good ideas. Councilmember Vento.
I want to second what Councilmember Johnson said about asking for their feedback. I think that's critically important. And one of the challenges as it relates to the State of the Region is that it being a daytime event, many of the cities and townships I represent won't be participating. These are folks that have full-time jobs in addition to their work as community leaders. So attending this, they won't be there. I would like to suggest that whether it be at a State of the Region or some sort of a regional workshop, that we try and create conversations where we bring together diverse community leaders and staff. And I know we do this on specific issues, but really give folks a chance to hear what it's like to be from an Inninger Township and the PFAS issue that they're facing that doesn't show up as much in the newspaper as it might for larger communities. Or for folks to better understand what it's like to be from the Phillips neighborhood in Minneapolis. I think one of the challenges that we face when we get into some pretty tough conversations is that we as council members really don't know each other's districts as well. And Councilmember Johnson has suggested the idea of having tours in our districts where we can go out and see each other's districts. I learned so much in my first year on the council, just being able to do a tour of the city of Hugo. And it was noted the other night at CDC by Councilmember Cedarberg what a phenomenal leader that Hugo has been in this region, and yet most folks don't know that. We don't know a lot about each other's turfs. So whatever we can do to generate those kinds of opportunities, I won't be here for it, but I sure hope it happens, and I'll applaud it when it does. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or feedback? Wendy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on what Councilmember Vento said, I used to do walking tours of downtown Lakeville and also driving tours of my district. And that is an open thing for anybody who wants to come. Give yourself plenty of time because it's a big district. But I think that is very helpful for understanding. When I was on the League of Minnesota Cities board, they had an exchange program where you would go to Greater Minnesota and somebody from Greater Minnesota would come to where you were. And it's very eye-opening to see how things are different in different parts of the state. I think having council members learn more about other people's districts is valuable, because you can make the assumption that every place is like where you are, but it really is not. And we have huge diversity across our region in economics, in social issues, in infrastructure that people aren't aware of if you don't actually go and look at it. Which brings me to, what is the timeline on the investment sheets by district? Do we know how long that's going to take?
Michael, do you have a sense?
Yeah, Chair, Councilmember Wolf. So they are near completion. So the hope is that we would have them at the State of the Region. But I know they're getting very close to going to the printer on some of those. But then I think after that, the goal would be for them to be produced until we can work on a more interactive tool. And the primary goal was actually to share some of our district investment success with legislators. So it's also tried to be timed to be before the legislative session. So they should be pretty soon.
That will be great to have, and might be enlightening for council members to see other council members' sheets as well, because I know my district is not going to have a whole lot of stuff on it, which is fine. But, we had the discussion on Monday about, well, you got to have more density in order to get investment. And like Lakeville had 25,000 people when I moved there. It's got 75,000 people now, and there's still very little investment going on. And so I think it's important for council members to see those, because there's some parts where we can brag about doing a lot of stuff, but it's a double-edged sword. There's some parts where people are going to say, well, how come there hasn't been any investment here?
Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you. Two things. So thanks for mentioning the City Exchange Program, because I was the VP of the League of Cities, and the Mayor of Moorhead and I, of course, were good friends. And I will just say this, there was a civil war going on in the League of Cities, the Metro versus the Greater Minnesota, and small cities would get looped into that. And the board was really concerned about that. So we did the City Exchange. I got to be Mayor of Moorhead. He came down and was Mayor of Plymouth. I understood what a difficult challenge it was to be a border city, and then to live near a river that flooded you all the time. And then he would come down and see the issues that we were having in suburbia, and was just as, eyes wide open, like, wow. So that was something I was thinking about. I am working with Kevin Anderson of Hennepin County to do a tour. Thank you, Elias, for sitting into for Michael on the planning meeting. And everybody would be invited to come. We've got so much area that we share that we just thought we'd bring legislators out after session, and possibly some leaders here. But I agree that it's important to, get into other people's space and meet people where they're outside of your own reality, so that you can have some sympathy or empathy or understanding of what else is going on throughout this big region. And the fact that we're all different is great. It's our strength. As far as the investment sheets, I've got, and I am putting these on my calendar. In fact, I went to a thing last night, so de facto, I put it on my calendar this morning for an event in Plymouth. But I would love to distribute those. I've got a legislative meeting coming up, you know that. And if I can get briefed on it in advance, I could actually speak to that at the meeting. I love going there when we are saying we are working at investments going into my communities, and especially when I've got people around me who can't say that are also speaking at the meetings. So it's just fun to see, you know, a city recognizing that Met Council is there and is partnering. So whatever you can do to brief me, at least as I meet my cities, and then, you know, I meet with all of them, pretty much all of them every Wednesday, once a month. So maybe that could be a topic. Maybe if we land our regional administrator coming, we could just even pass those out. So I'm really excited about that. And again, I think it's a double-edged sword, because people are always, you're always gonna go like, did you get an A or did you get an F, right? I'll remember those days. So I think just having us trained up on talking points, because an investment in one community is very important, but an investment in one community, an adjacent community may not have gotten the same investment. People don't, they live all over the place. They're living in different communities than they're working, and you know what I mean? So I just really want to be trained up. That's what I'm saying. Be ready and train us up, because that's coming fast. And, you know, I don't want to be the first person seeing it at the State of the Region. Right. You know.
Thank you. Ryan?
Madam Chair, council members, I would say the goal of the sheets is not to peddle a narrative. It's to show where the investments have been made over a period of time. So there is a part where we're trying to get this done in real time, and we're not trying to say, here are the things we need you to say when you see it. You're all appointed as council members from districts, and you can read it how you see it, and what that means for where we go is important. I would also say, like, you know, I was looking at some drafts with Judd just in the run up to getting some of this ready initially and stuff. What you see is different regions or different parts of the region receive different types of investment based on where they are situated is one of the biggest things that they very quickly show you, is that the types of investments that happen in certain districts don't happen in other districts, but that investments happen across the region, across this organization in ways that show up and knit together why the organization exists. So that'd be like my only big takeaway and talking point, which is pretty easy from a quick, I've not spent hours on this. I think I spent 10 minutes seeing initial draft and saying, oh, it's good. I wish it was digital and interactive. I mean, candidly, my interaction too. And then they explained to me why we couldn't do that this year, but where we're headed. And particularly for a new legislature as they seat and try to think about our role on a regional level, just how important it is to provide that information without narrative so that people can see that and then we can have those conversations. So I do want to say, I don't think the goal in year one is to try to peddle that there's like a specific narrative, other than it does remind us that across this region, we work together every single week and in between to try to think about the ways to invest in every corner.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to say a little bit more on our engagement with small business. It seems like we interact with them when they're impacted and not even prior. And maybe even our engagement with some of the chambers of commerce, a little self-serving here, but, but I mean, we could provide speakers and they're looking for all the time for speakers and engage them. And they want, it's a good conversation to have. And I think if we do a little bit more with them, it'd be real helpful.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Pacheco, we, you know, early on as the team came together, we kind of like mapped out your stakeholders, and the business community was one of the areas that we said was an opportunity area for sure for us to be connecting with. It's not to say that our residents obviously or in communities are not important. It's just an area that we have so many commonalities that we should be working for. Strong workforce, strong region, strong economy. And so really looking to deepen those partnerships for sure.
I just have, again, two of us work at Chambers. I actually book all of the speakers and have open and availability. And trust me, I've thought about Met Council. And just also remember, because we're the largest chamber in the West Metro, and the Maple Grove 94 Chamber is the next one for my district. And the business leaders are super important, entrepreneurs, mid-sized, large businesses, but they all live somewhere too. So they love to have presentations like this to also understand, you know, well, hey, this is also happening in the community where I live. So I don't know, I've been here 6 years. If anybody wants to come and speak to any of my I can slip you into the meetings, and I also work with my cities because they have some programming too to get in front of their business community. So I'm happy to anytime do that.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, it sounds like you'll be on the speaking circuit for yourself there. So we will be happy to make sure that you're supported in those conversations.
Thank you, Councilmember Vento.
Another, couple of other factors to, put into this in terms of focus are aging residents and residents who are dealing with disabilities. We have a lot of opportunities that are out there, but we tend to do it, I believe, in a pretty small scale. And I think there's just well, obviously, just from a population shift with the aging community, there's very much a need, and it isn't just housing, it's a whole myriad of issues. So I think that there are great opportunities with both of those. And I want to second Councilmember Pacheco's push for the small businesses. The medium and large businesses do just fine, but the small businesses tend to be the ones that kind of get pushed aside. And we tend to hear from them when they've lost parking spaces due to construction or transit changes. And getting them engaged in a more active way ahead of any of that kind of stuff, if ever they have to experience that, would be good, because there are benefits for us as an organization when those small businesses feel represented and recognized.
Other comments? Well, I think that was a great presentation. I really appreciate the insight of the staff and how you have been so thoughtful and how you can support us. I'm interested in knowing what's going to happen with our IAS improvements, and I see that you are going to be having improvements in many areas. Appreciate all the questions that you're asking us, and we can take this as a guide to go back to our homes, our offices, and think about more about some of these questions and bringing them back to you. There was one other thing that, I know what it was. It was the Metro Mayors meetings. There's meetings like that that are happening where we can take advantage of and learn about some of the highlights and some of the challenges. If we can get information or reminders, I know at one point, we would get information about where where council members were going and meeting and engaging. And that can maybe prompt other council members on how they can also engage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So our next item on the agenda is reports from our council members. Any reports from our council members? Councilmember Lilligan.
Madam Chair, thank you, and to my colleagues, thanks. And I want to report on a community meeting that I attended yesterday and kind of what led up to the community meeting. And it was around issues of unsheltered homelessness and some with sort of opioid use as well. In the Native community specifically, and sort of with this equity banner, unsheltered homelessness, opioid use very disproportionately impact communities here. Black communities and Indigenous communities are off the charts in the disparate impact. And in the Native community, a Native person in our region is 33 times more likely to die of an opioid overdose than the broader population, and 37 times more likely to live unsheltered. And so just to put sort of magnitude around that, and I'm kind of balancing two hats here right now, my Met Council hat and my community leadership hat. And there's an organization I think some people are aware of called the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors, MUD. It's a leadership forum of about 36 Native orgs from across the Metro. And earlier, about mid-December, MUD put out a letter, and I know that some people here got it, the chair and Ryan, but it was pretty forceful and sort of laying this out that Native people aren't feeling like we're anyone's priority. And that at the community level, we're struggling to deal with these issues and not feeling the support, feeling the love from the governmental jurisdictions. And it was a pretty forceful letter. I'll share it with everyone here for sure. And it asked for a meeting, demanded, I think would probably be a better word, of city, state, county, and regional officials to figure this out. And really the core of our ask was something that you've heard me say here 1,000 times is we're failing at addressing issues of unsheltered homelessness and as a culture, as a system, and that we need a collaborative, something different than we're doing now. A way that we can collaborate and leverage our own our resources with other resources and efforts, and to hope to make progress. And I say this in public probably too often because I don't have any proof at all, but I have a hunch that if we just better collaborated with our resources and leveraged existing resources, we would, rather than sort of staying in our areas, we would actually be making progress here and we would see the needle moving. But as it is, you have the city struggling to clear encampments, scrape camps because they're not safe places and they're not, and they have a negative impact on surrounding communities. You know, you have the counties that are working on the sort of social service and social support aspect, or at least my county, I'll be Hennepin County. You have Council and Met Transit, who, you know, we've developed the homeless action team, which I think is one of the sort of a little nub or a nexus of a really good response of starting to put our resources together across the whole enterprise. And you have the state through the Minnesota Initiative Council on Homelessness, but I'll just tell you at the street level, we don't feel that so much. But people so this meeting yesterday was about 100 people, including the mayor of Minneapolis, a majority of council members, high-level agency people from the state, from the county, and I will say my council is very well represented there. My council, Met Transit, through Transit Police, the community outreach, and others. And it was a really robust conversation, not to go back over all of the data that we all already know, but to really figure out a way of going forward. And at least from this part of the community, the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors, to really try to add momentum to this idea of coming together and building a new collaborative model, because what we're doing is not working. And I would say it was very successful. And I was there as a community member, but I'm a council member as well. And the ask from all of the jurisdictions represented was that we would participate in figuring out, building this new model, and there wasn't any kind of financial ask or anything, although there was quite a bit of conversation about the sort of disparate amounts that are spent in communities like the Native community. So of course there's always going to be there's going to be money at the end of this, but really we need to step in. And my point yesterday was that right now, at this point in the conversation, it's a leadership thing, right? The leadership within all of these jurisdictions needs to show that this is a priority and needs to participate. The mayor of Minneapolis agreed to participate, lots of city council members. And so I'm raising it here because we will be asked to be involved in this at some point, or at least leadership. And I just really want to encourage us to step into this with as open a mind as possible. And every jurisdiction that I have contact with, which is pretty much every jurisdiction in my district, says, oh yeah, this is what we need. We need a collaborative model, but nobody's doing it, right? And at the community level, we acknowledge we have expertise. We can help this happen, but we don't have the resources or the authority to make it happen. And so that was the request. Those that control the resources, those that make the decision need to be at the table. So tomorrow morning, I'll be in a follow-up strategy meeting with a number of these people who volunteered to be part of this, and there will be more to come. But I feel like I hope that this meeting yesterday was sort of the turning point, right? We're gonna sort of stop being territorial or stop being, fearful of what this might cost us, because it's already costing us a lot, and move forward in a collaborative way and build something new. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Vento.
Just two items. First off, I think it's important for us as an organization to note the death of former President Carter and the tremendous difference he made as a civil rights leader, as a leader on our national parks and public lands. And as just an all-around good guy. And the fact that he picked another good guy, a Minnesotan, to be his vice president and change the role of the vice president is notable. So I wanted to note that. Secondly, Councilmember Lilligren, I can't imagine the struggle you're up against, but I do have to say that I am concerned about looking at this in such a way that we don't acknowledge that there are unsheltered homelessness crises occurring throughout the region. Just, I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, at the nature sanctuary near where the Gold Line construction continues on Kellogg Boulevard. And I don't know what the demographics were there as far as who was living there at the time, but these are dangerous situations. And we've been struggling with the homeless issue since forever. But as a council, I remember one of our early meetings, we had quite a contentious debate about the use of transit as shelter. I would ask that we as a council figure out, and I know that we have representatives who are part of other homeless and advocacy groups addressing this issue, but I'd like to see the big picture on what we can do as a state, what we can do as a nation, but certainly what we can do as a state. Because the minute we try to squeeze the balloon in one spot, it shows up somewhere else. So those are just my thoughts. I am in no way downplaying what the important work that you're doing, but the minute we close down one outdoor encampment, it shows up somewhere else. And people have to have a place to go. I've been in the midst of a personal conversation with a dear friend who thinks we ought to be providing space for people to live outdoors. And I think that creates all sorts of organizational, political, financial risks and liabilities for anybody involved in such an effort. We're dealing with more than homelessness. We're dealing with mental health. We're dealing with fractured families.
Drug
We're
addiction.
dealing with drug abuse. We're dealing with,
Drug
abuse. And but so many of these people are the youth. And that's the population that scares me the most, because how do we get them out of that cycle?
It's the fastest growing homeless population. Youth.
Pardon?
It's the fastest growing homeless population.
Just as, yeah, exactly.
Real issues. Thank you for bringing that forward. Any other council member reports? Regional Administrator, do you have any?
Madam Chair, I'll just say I spent the last 2 days trying to, things get backlogged near the end of the year sometime. And one of the things that kind of got put to the side was, as part of our ongoing culture work, we've been working on the idea of, writing thank yous to people and thank you cards acknowledging good work in ways big and small along the way as we do our work. You'll get a full update at council briefing here sometime like February or early March as we're planning council retreat. This will be a big part of it. So you'll hear more about some of the work that's been going on, but making sure that as an organization we acknowledge feats as they come. And so one of the neat things in that is that every area works with me also so that I can help play a role in that. And so one of the things over the last 2 days, though, was writing almost 30 thank you cards to people in roles across this organization in all sorts of different spots. And I'm not going to run through all 30, but what I'll tell you is there's good work that happens here every day. And, from very small acts where somebody writes in as a writer and talks about a way in which an individual operator helped them in a moment of deep need because they were lost or cold or just couldn't figure out where they were trying to go, to the person who writes in and says, it's dangerous on my corner. And if there people, I could get run over if people aren't safe. And I see how every day someone comes through my neighborhood and makes sure it's safe, to someone who stopped a methane leak that could have been extremely dangerous in one of our environmental services facilities, to people who are answering front phones every day and helping to de-escalate. It's a reminder of the work that we do across a huge organization every day. And I just wanted to give voice to that and appreciate our entire employee base for the work they do to add a human touch to what sometimes can feel like, big regional policy stuff that at the end of the day comes down to human interaction.
Mm-hmm. Good points. Thank you. Do you have anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll
Attorney?
pass.
Thank you. Well, that ends our reports, and that also ends our meeting. So this meeting is adjourned.